PNR with Adam R. Welcome to 3PNR. I'm your host, Adam R. And joining me for this episode is Todd Wilcox. Todd, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Adam. How are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to have you on. Glad to have your time. Let's open up and start with what put you on the path. You have a lot going on. I read your bio. The self-healing, ufology, paranormal. You got a lot. So let's kind of introduce you and speak, or have you speak about what put you on the path for all this.
Sure. So the path I'm on now with the healing really did start with the paranormal. I've been on a paranormal team for, it's been 15 plus years now. And we were, you know how it is when you're in a paranormal team, you start to meet other teams and you become friends with some of those people and you go do events together and different investigations together. And that was what got me towards the healing. One of the people from another group called me and said they were putting together a team that was going to help people that nobody else could help. So if there was a haunting that people couldn't take care of, if there was somebody that seemed to be possessed or whatever the case may be, if no other groups could help, this team would go in and help. And I said, yeah, I'd love to be a part of it. I'd love to help people, but how do we do that? What makes us different? I don't know what we're going to do. And she said, well, the group's going to get together. We'll talk. We'll find different ways, different things to learn and different ways to help. And the first thing that we did was we invited a shaman to come do some training with us. And that shaman was teaching us how to manifest our energy for protection and to help other people protect. And while we were doing that training, she was, and this is dealt with in the book a lot, and I want to encourage anybody that's listening, is when you're doing some kind of training, you're learning new things, and it doesn't feel right, it probably is not. And what was happening was this shaman was telling us, this is what your energy is going to look like. This is what your energy is going to feel like. And mine was different. Her energy was warm. Mine was cold. Her energy, I'm trying to remember the color, but mine was a light blue, kind of a turquoise blue. And she just kept saying it should look like this color, it should feel this heat. And it didn't work for me. So I disengaged from that training. I listened and I made some notes. And then when I was on my own, I started working it by myself. And that led, the training that we had with the shaman led to me finding my energy, accessing that energy source, and start to use it to help people. It started off as protection. I would just send my energy to people. I would send my energy to myself. I didn't always get comfortable going to bed at night. I don't like being vulnerable. I didn't know, if something was going to happen at night, whether it was something from the paranormal realm or, just an intruder into the house. I never did relax. And so I built an energy bubble around me for protection and started sleeping better. And that led to one day I'm working with the energy and all of a sudden I was in this different realm. And it was during a time when I was trying to meditate. And normally what meditation was for me was sitting in a chair, trying to clear my mind and falling asleep. And this one was actually a meditation session. But what happened was I followed my energy to this room that I now call my quantum room. And really all it is just this place that's full of gray mist. It's like being inside not a thunderhead, but a fairly nasty gray cloud. But the energy's moving around me, and really anything can happen when I'm in that energy place. And this all came from wanting to help people. And while I was in that energy room, my quantum room, I started asking, what is my purpose? And it took a long time to find it. And what I found was that my purpose, I always thought that once I knew my purpose, it would just clear everything up for me. I could just have this direct beeline to success and happiness and wealth and, whatever. But what it turned out was my purpose is just two words, and that's to help. And it aligned beautifully with what I was doing, what I was developing with this Slipstream Shaman process. And so that was how this book came about. But it all started because I love the paranormal. If somebody's going on a ghost hunt, I want to go. If somebody's going to look for UFOs, I want to go. If somebody's looking for Bigfoot, I want to go. Anytime somebody was doing something out of the ordinary, I wanted to be involved in it from the time I was a little kid. And I'm not sure exactly how it all started, but I do have an interesting story that may lead us kind of that way if you wanted to get into that.
Yeah, before you do though, what you were saying earlier about the shaman and the colors were different, the energy's different. The more research I do, I start to find that even psychics, they have different software. All right, they all have an ability, but per se, one could speak to the dead, one could foresee the future, another one is in the now. You know what I mean? So everyone's software is different. They're not going to be able to perceive things just like you. Your energy is not going to be the same energy as that shaman, but what works for you to help others, that's what you should. And I agree. Go that direction. Take notes. I like what you said about that. I took notes because that's what I do on the show. I personally have witnessed nothing, but I absorb information, right? This way, when I get into the field and I start doing research, I'm not going into the field with any kind of filter on. I want to go out there, eyes wide open, and like a sponge. I want to take in information because, there's really no bad information. There's just learning how to filter correctly. So I like what you did. So yeah, moving on to your experiences directly. Go ahead, start into that.
Yeah. So the experience and this just happened to me recently. I was doing some timeline work, and a lot of the work that I do is in a, like I call it a quantum room because it's just a place of energy and spirit. And when I'm in there, time is different than it is here. In the book, I have about half the book is about experiences I've had working with people in the quantum room and what has happened with them after working with them. And as I write it down, I write the words that make sense for me at the time, but they don't line up with what an English major would say I should be writing. So the present tense, past tense, current tense, in my experiences are all jumbled together, and the words that I use are the right words for what happened. Unfortunately, they're the wrong words for anybody that understands English. So that the tense, the future tense, past tense, those things are wrong when I write it down on how we understand time. So that part of the book had to be heavily edited, and there were some fights involved because the words I used were the words that were right for what happened with me. But I kind of got sidetracked. So I was recently doing some work on myself, and I just did a timeline travel, and I went back, and I don't know what took me there, but I guess I was just curious. I went back to the basement of the home I lived in when I was a little boy. I was probably 3 at the time, and I would go downstairs and that's where I played cowboys and Indians and space and things like that. And I had this horse, and it was on 4 springs, and I would get on that thing, and the Westerns I would watch on TV, the cowboys were always riding real fast. So I just rode that thing to death.
I actually know what you're talking about. You're talking about it was almost like a plastic horse, but it had 4 springs on all corners. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, I remember those.
I rode it hard, man. It was like I was helping out the Lone Ranger going after some bad guys. And I went back to one of those moments, and in that basement room, there were approximately 10 of these entities that I call watching men. Other people call them the Hat Man. Some people call them shadow people. And what it is a figure that's about 6 feet tall, fairly heavily built, wearing a hat or maybe a helmet. You know it has a face, but you can't see it. And then it's dark. It's dark blue, charcoal gray, black. It's a dark color, and usually has some kind of a cape or long coat. And there were a number of these things, and they're watching me. And I believe that might be the first time that I encountered them. I had completely forgotten about it. I encountered them later, working overnight at a place. I've never been concerned about them. I've talked to people that are, but
Todd, did you ever have like night terrors as a kid?
Yeah, I did not like being alone at night. Sleeping was rough for me as a child. I wanted lights. I wanted company. Thankfully, my brother and I shared a room for a long time, and sleeping was not a happy time for me.
You know, I encounter this a lot, and so I do a lot of off podcast interviews. You know, I try to, it's in the name of learning. I hear a lot of people who were kind of born with the ability to perceive entities, which I'm starting to believe are interdimensional, or there's got to be a portal between two realities, right? And I find a lot of people who have night terrors are people that later on go on to become paranormal investigators or psychics, and because they could perceive what other people can't. And the parents have this habit of yelling at them, go to bed, there's nothing there, it's your imagination. Unknowingly, the child has that software in his brain which allows him to perceive things that we can.
Yes, I agree, and it is quite common with the people I talk to and the people in the paranormal groups that have had this type of experience, whether it's seeing what I have or the ability to interact with spirit or energy. Many of us seem to have some kind of an unusual connection to this area that helps us. And I agree with you, Adam, that I think it's interdimensional also, many of the things, and that goes for Bigfoot and probably many of the ghost things that we research. I think most of those things are have an interdimensional aspect, not necessarily a haunting or a spirit of somebody that we know or a spirit that used to live there.
Well, yeah, because if you think about what Skinwalker Ranch, there's a large field of magnet. They're discovering the science that below the surface that there's moving water, there's metal materials, and when you combine these things, you have what we know is a scientific reaction. It alters the magnetism of the area, so you don't know what portals you're opening and closing. And when I say that, I don't mean something walked through it. I mean, you're able to see that other existence through your eyes, via the human brain has the ability to. And I say this a lot on shows, and I wonder if people think I'm crazy when I say this, but if you look at the construct of the brain, it has receptors. We do have receptors. Even things that we're looking at in real time to us, we're seeing a delay. There's latency, and so perhaps something in that environment allowed your receptor in your brain to visualize and perceive something that you otherwise couldn't. It's so that's a hypothesis in a sense, but it gives me comfort to think that could be a case. Like I speak to people of religion, and I often wonder if the things they've heard in the past and documented are the same kind of phenomena where you're perceiving something from another close by existence that you otherwise can't perceive.
Absolutely. And there's been times where I've talked with other people that do the different investigations. And one of the things that we talk about is wouldn't it be curious if while we're doing this investigation and asking questions to this thing that we think is a ghost, it's actually a person in another dimension, and we're in a very thin veil for that other dimension. So we're able to hear them and they're able to hear us. Are they thinking they're interviewing, talking to a ghost as well? When they're answering our questions and we're doing these things. So I've often pictured two different paranormal things.
I'm really glad you said that. I really am, because one of the things I think is you go to this place and it's, quote unquote haunted, and you're in there investigating and you're calling out for them. And, there's there's a latency. It's not a direct line to the other side. So you might perceive it as being creepy. Meanwhile, on the other side, you're haunting them.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I would love to be able to see through and see if something like that's happening, but that's all part of the fun, and this whole world of the paranormal, which is becoming more and more normal. I'm afraid we're going to have to come up with a new name eventually, because it's becoming so part of the mainstream. I can remember I'm 59, so 40 years ago when I was in high school, if I started talking about UFOs or Bigfoot or ghosts or anything like that, people would actually leave. They would put up their fingers and the sign of the cross, like I was a vampire.
Yeah.
It was kind of jokingly, but that you were made fun of. And now you mention it, and it actually draws a crowd. People will hear you talking to somebody else about one of these things, and it starts to develop a crowd. Well, I've had this experience. We know this. My mom had this. And so it's becoming more and more normal. And I'm really excited to see where the whole field goes. And I'm talking anything from the alternative medicine that I'm really focused on now to Bigfoot, to ghosts, to UFOs. I'm really curious where it all is going to lead us over the next 20 to 30 years, because there's so many more people interested in it right
Well,
now.
not just that. I got a prediction. I've been speaking about it on the show, and I've been speaking about it with friends in private. I think in the next decade, I think AI is going to answer a lot of questions, because they're going to be able to keep in mind what AI is. It's something that goes over the numbers billions of times to our 10, right? So I think AI will discover the paranormal, I think AI will stumble onto things that we can't perceive. Also, if they're using, imagine this, they're going to be using sensors that our brain and our eyes don't have. Even if we were to attach them to a camera, we still wouldn't perceive. AI is going to utilize multiple methods to analyze a location, right? So I think AI will stumble on the paranormal. And what paranormal, if you think about what that word is, the culture of America and the culture of Japan. If we go to Japan, the culture is different. So it's parallel to our normal. That's all paranormal is. It's parallel to what we can perceive as normal. So they take that word and they attach it with it being, it's supernatural. And the truth be told, it's something that's abnormal. We have a hard time explaining what it is. So that was the universal word used. I think in the next decade or 2 decades, with our technology is evolving faster than us by a mile. We're still racist. You know what I mean? We still put a lot behind religion. We have crazy ideologies that we believe in, and AI wouldn't give a shit about that. They're running the numbers. What's more pragmatic, and so technology is evolving at such a rate that when it starts analyzing us and analyzing the planet, I think it will be the first to really answer the question of other realms in the paranormal long before science here does. Because the problem is, scientists today, they probably could put the resources in it, and humanity probably could discover the answers. But like you said earlier, there's still that shun factor. Even 40 and 50 years later, they're still like, well, that's pseudo science and it's nonsense. But you don't know.
Right.
Because, 30, 40 years ago when you mentioned black holes, like they were an idea, but like, that's horseshit. Now it's, we know. When you mentioned the idea that there's plural of universes, it sounded like pseudoscience, but now we got an idea. So imagine what technology discovers in 20 years.
Yeah, and I didn't go down the road of AI, but that is a fascinating thought on where that could lead us. And with the computing power that has, like you were saying, what an amazing journey that would be. That could really rev things up. And I'm hoping, and one of the things that I'm looking at in this book and the next 2 to follow is raising human consciousness as part of it. But if we start looking at the better things, start looking for the better futures, the better outcomes, we have a chance of finding those things. Growing up, it was always this dystopian, horrible future that we had in front of us. Mad Max, Blade Runner. You can go down the list. I would hope it's more something along the lines of Star Trek, where we can at least try to work together, the human side of it, at least. There's always going to be differences. There's always going to be somebody that doesn't quite get on board. But, if we all start working towards being better, I think we're going to.
Well, that's going to do that. You have to eliminate, there's this weird thing people do. You and I are both, I'm guilty of it myself. Like, you want to stand out. You want to go in a crowd. I want to dress a certain way. I want people to recognize me right away. I mean, we're all guilty of this, right?
Sure.
But that's just, being yourself and being expressive. Now, the bigger thing is we got to look past our differences as race. We should not be looking at race. We should not be looking at our different religions. We definitely should. Politics, I will never understand. You know what I mean? If we don't behave like a species, there's no chance that we're going to thrive elsewhere. And there's no, hypothetically speaking, there's visitors here watching us, right? And they've been doing so for thousands of years, because these accounts have been going around for thousands of years. I don't think they're going to, why community? I mean, they probably have a program, a hybrid program, no doubt, and the other programs. And we're definitely being studied like National Geographics, but to sit at a table with them as a whole and speak with them, I wouldn't do it. If there's no chance. Watching the violence and the ignorance we have here, there's no shot. So, like you said, for us to get past a lot of these things would be for us to look past the small differences. Like, I never understood why Russia and America were rivals, other than different, communist and capitalism. We're still people, and we're not even in the same part of the planet. I fail to see, is it such a threat that we're going to go there, alter the way they think? They're people. You can only control minds so long. And we've seen this over with religion. Like you said, years ago when you were in high school, if you called God into question and Christianity into question, you were that guy in the corner, Yeah,
for sure.
Or now, it's healthy. You must ask questions. You have to ask for evidence. You have to, if you don't, and you're complacent, you're not involving. What's involving is the phone in your pocket's evolving, not you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it certainly is evolving. I'm shocked almost weekly by something that I might bring up that I hadn't talked about or thought of in decades, and then all of a sudden it's flooding my my social media and different things, just by having a conversation with somebody, not even on the phone, just standing at work and talking to somebody. We brought up, somebody said something about Petticoat Junction, a TV show that was on a long time ago. I hadn't thought of that in probably close to 40 years. And I'm not kidding. Within 2 days, I probably had 40 things between Facebook and Instagram and whatever about Petticoat Junction. I could see one maybe if things weren't being tracked, but to get so many was just bizarre. And I think there's a lot of that going on right now, and it's all those algorithms and the AI, I think, is starting to really be a part of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. It's happened to me. I don't know if it's coincidence, but just recently, very recently, I was thinking about a certain cologne that I've been trying to find. I used to wear as a kid. And maybe a few months later, I started seeing it in my Facebook feeds. They advertise on Facebook? I started seeing it. And I don't know if that's coincidence or because I did. All right, so here's what I did do. I did go in the search engine of Google to try to track down what the name it was by describing the bottle. And, when you do Google investigations, it can take hours or minutes. Yes. And I think that algorithm translated to my social media, right? Because otherwise, if they're reading our minds, we're in trouble. And a lot of people have pushback with that. For me, it's like, well, oh no, don't advertise exactly what I want. That's crazy. I'd rather advertise to me things I like as opposed to having them force feed an advertisement of something I'm never going to be interested in. So, I mean, yeah. It has two sides to that coin, but it is kind of, I do know what you mean, and it is kind of creepy. So
yeah, it's pretty weird, but though, and kind of the whole reason I went down this rabbit hole was I would like to see us evolve. I would love to see us be able to. I don't think we want to homogenize completely and lose our differences. I think the differences are power for all of us.
Sure.
But I think we really need to focus more on how we're the same, instead of fighting over how we're different.
Right.
And that's something that I want to address in especially the next two books, but even in this one, we're all at the end of the day, we're all energy. We're all made from the same stuff. And we look different, we may sound different, but if we broke everything down, we're all the same parts, all the same neurons, all the same electrons, those things. So if we start looking at how we're similar instead of fighting about why we're different, and usually those things, you were talking about, why do we hate Russia? Well, it makes us money to hate Russia. We need to hate somebody so that we can bulk up our military, and we need to hate somebody so we can be prepared to defend against them. And it's a moneymaker. And as long as we're making a lot of money on fighting people, I think we're going to find a fight no matter.
No, you're right. No, you're right about. I'll tell you why you're right about that. Look at the old commercials from like the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Buy U.S. military bonds and the communist fight. That's how they advertise it, and people bought these things. So no, you're right about that. It's good to be different. When I say that, you don't want everyone to play the same music. You don't want everyone to dress the same, because then you as an individual doesn't make sense. You're not an individual. What I mean is, we definitely got to get rid of race. I mean, there's no harm in saying, someone asks, well, what are you? Well, I'm American. What else does that matter? The applications in our country need to change. The box that marks your race should not exist. The box that asks you about your religious preference shouldn't exist. Your political agenda, who cares? This is a job. It should ask you, do you qualify for this position? And if so, when can you start?
I agree 100%.
That's like when we go to Mars. When Elon goes there to terraform, I promise you, on his applications, race, religion, even sex, none of that matters. What do you contribute to this project here at Mars? That's what matters. He's not going to give a shit about the rest.
Yeah, and that's I think where we need to be working towards, and hopefully, from at least what is put out about him, I like the way he thinks for a lot of things, and hopefully what he's doing is going to jumpstart us to where we start working towards that again. It's hard to believe that, again, like I said, I'm almost 60, and I can remember watching the moon landing in grade school in a classroom. They showed it on the TVs, and we really haven't done anything since. We had the space shuttle for a while and Skylab for a while. But why aren't we on another planet? Why aren't we searching the stars? Why aren't we developing better means to move? And
well, we are now. We're I believe it's 2025. We're going to have the first people on the moon since the Apollo missions, and one of them is going to be a female, the first female astronaut from NASA. They're in training. Yeah, they're training right now. They're preparing. We were supposed to launch yesterday for a program, like a fixed shuttle with a fake things on what is it? They're not. I don't want to call them dummies, crash test dummies. It's some sort of biomechanical thing where they're going to test the radiation and you're going to fly around the moon and come back. We were supposed to launch yesterday. It was delayed per usual, but we want the moon to be a proving ground between here and Mars. Not only that, let's be real. If you want to be really real, we're due to, because we want to go back there before some other country does it, unfortunately.
Sure.
That's really our motivation.
Yeah. Yeah, Russia was wanting to go there, so we had to beat them. China goes there, so now we're interested again.
Yeah, of course. We got to one up. And, I have a friend of mine, I won't say his name. He is 1,000% certain that we faked the moon landing. I'm like, there's no way. You think China and Russia would not just blow us out of, they would out us so fast it would have been done forget it. They wouldn't have waited. Yeah. They would have outed us for that. They have probes. I mean, China currently has things going around the planet or the moon right now. They have a surveyor. They could see, we left. What did they say though? That we polluted, if we're polluting it. Because we left
our trash.
Yeah, there's a rover there. There's a landing module. They didn't want to say something positive about it actually being there, so they found a way to spin it negative. I thought that was funny.
Well, we are consistent. We go to a brand new place and leave a mess.
Yeah, It's amazing though. Some of the places on Earth, in the ocean, the deepest part of the ocean, somewhere we've never been before. You know what I will guarantee we find? Plastic. We will find plastic. So
Yeah.
it's
A Coke bottle.
It's an amazing feat. So
Oh,
for
that's
you,
funny.
you follow. So recent. This is what my new thing this year coming. I'm speaking to a lot of people of religion. I just recorded one last night with a pastor. I've spoken to some archbishops. I'm going to be speaking to some rabbis because here's the question. What do they think about ufology? And I have yet to come across a person of religion to say that they're extraterrestrial rather than it might be us. Or it might be us from another dimension. They're not. It seems to me that they're not willing to accept the idea of life elsewhere, not even so much as a plant.
Yeah. And I think maybe the one exception I can remember, and this wasn't somebody of religion saying that they're here, but somebody was, I believe it was with the Pope, asking them, do you think there's life on other planets? And the response was something to the effect of, if there is, they're all God's children. We will welcome them as such. It was as close to saying yes as I've heard.
Yeah, because the Vatican did. They really did. They own they have telescopes. They bought these things. So when you're a religion and you think about early Christianity that God made here alone, now they're loosening their interpretation of that, right? They're evolving because they have to, right? Otherwise, if aliens do come, or let's say the aliens come to the White House lawn, the first thing on the Vatican's agenda is how do we baptize these things and get money from them?
Yes, sir.
That's exactly what's going to happen. It's crazy to say that, but that's the truth. And they'll ration, just as you said, well, God made it. Listen, I said this to the guy yesterday I spoke to, I said this to the Archbishop. There's definitely an architect. There's a higher form of energy out there. I mean, if you look at the mechanics of our solar system, without Jupiter, its moons, we're subject to a lot of bombardment from asteroids and comets. The gravity of those large planets keep us pretty safe. If it's not for our moon, it's 1/4 the size of the planet Earth, meaning no other moon out there, it has these kind of measurements, and it revolves around us in such a way, it's almost mechanical. It's like a Swiss watch. It really keeps things in check here. I watched a documentary about what happened if the moon just left. The chaos. It'd be crazy here. So it does seem to appear to be that this is by design. That doesn't mean a creator didn't make the same project, keyword project, elsewhere, with many other planets that have a moon in circumference and protective planets in their solar systems. And he separated us because think about what we do in a lab. Todd, if you have a lab and you have rats and they're being experimented for project A, and you have another group of rats that are being experimented with project B, we can't let them see one another. It would damage each study. You know what I mean? They have to be separate. Now, this is just me thinking. This is a theory of mine. I don't come from a science background, but I use a pretty powerful imagination. And I try to put myself in place of anything that's creative or higher intelligence to see what would I do. So your experience of ufology for yourself, though, what have you found?
So as I discussed a little bit in an email when we first started talking, is a dear friend of mine who's been on your show, Ron Johnson.
Yeah.
He's been abducted many times. I've interviewed, I've lost count of how many people I've interviewed that have talked about it, that they believe they have, and many of their stories are similar enough that I think they're accurate, and I think there's something going on. Again, just like you said a minute ago, I don't know if it's us from the future. I don't know if it's an extraterrestrial life force that is here, or there's people that believe the earth is hollow and things, just another offshoot of us, are coming out of that. So I'm not exactly sure how it all fits in, but as far as UFOs, there's things out there that we can't explain. There's people that have had things happen to them that I don't know what else to attribute that to. So I do believe that there are UFOs, and I would love to believe. Well, let me just tell you about an experience I had.
Sure.
This might answer that question better. So I have a radio show also, and for years I was saying, I can't wait until the aliens try to abduct me, I'm going to commandeer the ship and go wherever I want. I'm going exploring. And as I was saying this to different people, everybody that had had an experience would turn almost white, very ashen, and say, Todd, don't say things like that. You won't be able to, number one, and two, you're upsetting them. Don't say these things. Dr. David Jacobs, who's done all the hypnosis work with people that have been abducted, he got real stern with me. Todd, stop doing things like that. You will not be able to do what you're saying. And one night I'm staying in one of those little motels, those L-shaped motels that are on the side of the road. A little bit of nostalgia. I just love them. They're usually gross, but I love them. And I'm in one of those. I peek out the small back window and I see that there's a field back there that has some broken down vehicles, some abandoned refrigerators and washers and dryers, those kind of things. And I lay down, go to sleep, and sometime in the middle of the night, there's light in the room. It's not the lights from the room, but the room is lit up, 100% lit, and there's no shadows anywhere. You can't tell where the light source is, and that back wall is gone. The whole back wall is gone, and I've got these things in the room. There's grays of 3 different sizes. There's a praying mantis looking one. There was just this blob that I couldn't quite see that I think might have just been a little bit out of phase, so I couldn't focus on it. But there was multiple aliens in there, and they basically, the traditional gang of bullies, how they surround somebody.
Right.
They did that to me, and they made it clear that I would not be able to take one of their ships. I would not be able to survive if I took one of their ships. And they didn't think I was funny and that I was going to stop making light of this right now. And to make sure that I understood, they said, you're going to be violently ill. And I was violently ill for about 3 days. I was afraid at one point that I had radiation poisoning. I was getting ready to go to the hospital. I was so sick. And I didn't talk about that experience for a while. I talk about it now, but I do no longer make light of it and act like I'm going to commandeer a ship. So I do believe there's something out there. I don't have a firm grasp on what it is, but I know in my mind, there's no question that there's things out there.
Yeah. To support what you said, one, UFOs, 100% real. Because of for me anyway, with the military videos and what I've learned, 100% real. What's behind them? What's controlling? No idea. But for you, what they did, in my opinion anyway, if I had to use my imagination and I'm a really advanced life form with great technology, like I said previous, you have every human brain has a receptor in it. We can see this I worked in radiology for some years. I've seen tons of these in imaging with and without contrast. If you look at the human brain, look at the universe itself, the cosmic web, there's a lot of similarity in the construct of nature across the board. But there's definitely receptors in the brain, and they very well could have implanted those images into you, right? They sent you a download. Would have obviously a very firm message. As far as being sick, I know to a certainty that the U.S. military, just because of a show I used to watch called Future Weapons, they could use radio waves, sound waves, to make you physically sick. We know that happens. That's a thing. So you very well had technology thrown your way to kind of like, not to scare you so much as to be respectful, maybe for the people that have had it. Bear in mind, the people that have these experiences, they're part of a project, in my opinion, right? And when you're friends with some of these people and you're belittling the project, you're belittling the people behind the project, even though you speak in jest, you don't know what that might have made that friend of yours feel like internally.
Sure.
And so these beings who have him in a project, they could obviously tap into his source and see what he's feeling and recognize that maybe something you said put him in a position of discomfort. And they gave you a firm warning. Like, you have to, whenever I hear things like this, you make room for the realm of possibility. When you look at our technology and what we have on the shelf is considerably a black project, imagine something with 20,000 years on us. Forget it.
Oh, man.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit. It's like, I'm going to do an episode. I'm going to have your friend back on as well. I want to speak to people who have been abducted. I want to do I'm going to probably do one podcast, maybe 2 hours long with multiple people on it, because I now need to learn more about that.
Sure.
I had an idea of what was going on, or at least I thought I did. And then I read more cases and I see there's a lot of, there are similarities, but there's a lot of differences. And then some people want to say, well, that's bullshit then if they're different. Like, well, no, not all projects are the same. Not all the members of the project are the same. Each one has to be treated differently, right? Like when we go for a study for a new medication, right? There's a rule out phase. Like, well, we can't have you in here because of X, Y, and Z, but we can have you because you fit the protocol, right? I mean, it's different.
Yes.
So I need to find that out before I cast any kind of, not even judgment, before I render an opinion on it. I want to learn more about it. And again, like people like me, I've never witnessed anything in my life, period. Is it because my computer lacks the software, or is it that I'm a pain in the ass? And I think it's the latter, because like you, when you were calling them out, I had this idea, like, what if I negotiate? Like, they show up to my house. Do I get to negotiate? Like, listen, you guys got all this technology. We could schedule every Thursday. Do whatever you want. We probes. I don't give a shit. What do I get out of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I want to be like, what if I want to be the best chess player in the world? Can you send me a download? You know what I mean? Like, but that's me semi being funny, but also kind of being realistic. So I would want to talk to them. And I think that's probably part of the problem. I think they're like, well, I don't know. Maybe this is not the guy.
And there's not a lot of sharing. It seems to be a one-way transaction where they want something from us. Ron is one of those people that has had both, where they've taken DNA from him and also trained him to be a pilot. So there are some people that seem to get something out of it, but most people just seem to be used. So yeah, I think there's different things going on and different people with different attributes that they're using it for.
You know what I've been doing off podcast with some of the people that have had experiencers that have been abducted, only the off podcast people. I've been asking one question, all of them. Have you ever had cancer or a serious sickness? And I haven't come across one yet. I find that odd. I haven't heard one tell me anything about like a autoimmune disease or anything. They all seem to be relevantly healthy. And, that's just from the few I've spoken to. This is why I tell you, I'm going to have people on the show, and I'm going to interview as many abductees as possible to see if there's like kind of a parallels there. I don't know.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
On TV, they always end up with some kind of cancer from it, it seems like.
Right.
But no, the people I've talked to, like you said, have been very healthy for the most part. Ron does have a health ailment. I won't talk about it on air.
I'd spoken to him off air about it. Yeah. Yeah.
And a big part of the book is how we dealt with that. And, I tracked it back in the quantum realm back to an alien. And I guess we can talk about that if you like, the experience that happened with him. And it is in the book. It's the book is set up. The first half teaches people how to access their energy, find a quantum room, start developing their abilities in using this wonderful energy that's out there. The second part is talking about the experiences that I have had, and a big part of that is Ron. And if it's okay, maybe I'll just share that with you.
Sure. I mean, okay. But real quick, when I say about them not having cancer, I mean, not previous to their experience. I think some people are selected. And so try to imagine, we found another planet with life on it. It has oxygen, or has its own form of oxygen. It has its own atmosphere. We can't breathe it, but the beings that live there can. So like humans do, how do we blend in there? Without using masks, how do we live on that planet? It would require a hybrid program. And that's not something that happens in a lifetime. That's not even the generations. That's eons to make that a perfected program. Regardless of how good your technology is, it doesn't happen rapidly. I think that part of their reason, we're being observed here. Partly we're National Geographics to them. we are definitely entertaining, but ultimately the planet's a viable planet, you know, and they want to probably develop a hybrid program that will take a very long time. So a lot of the subjects they select, they don't really have like ailments. And the few that do, they have something else that they're interested in. But the majority I'm finding so far don't have massive, like, you know, any comorbidities. So those are the things I found odd. But anyway, go ahead. What you're telling me.
Sure. And Ron was actually the same way. He was the picture of health, tall, in great shape, energetic, was always out in the woods, looking for Bigfoot, looking for UFOs, doing ghost hunts, you know, things like that, very active. And then he started slowing down. The doctors found that his heart was failing, and he got down to where it was running at 13% efficiency. And they told him, you've got less than 6 weeks to live. And that was probably close to 5 years ago now, that they told him 6 weeks to live. And I had just gotten this process to the point where I was helping people out, you know, with bigger things. And
Right.
Ron told me about his heart, and I said, you know, I asked him, I said, would you like me to do a healing for you? He says, yeah, I'll take anything I can get. And so I did several healings, and what I've found doing this work is that there are a number of things going on. And when you're in the quantum realm, looking at people, at their energy and at spirit and energy, you find that there's things attached to them. And
Right.
some of these things I call companions. These are things that started out as something positive that no longer helps them. An example of that would be a little boy getting yelled at by his dad. And so he just gets real quiet, goes internal, kind of shrinks up, trying to be invisible, you know, to let the storm pass. And so he's got this behavior, this part of him now, that when things get hot and crazy, he just goes internal. And it worked great to keep him safe from his dad when his dad was upset. Grade school, and it's definitely not working well in high school, because now when there's any kind of stress, he goes quiet. He can't speak in the front of the class. He can't make his voice heard. In college, it gets worse. In work, it gets worse. Something that started out as positive has turned into something that's holding him back. That's a companion. The other things that I find I call a parasite. And these are things that maybe started as a bad thought that manifested into something horrible, or maybe it's what people would call a demon or an alien. And those things we remove, and just, you know, that you just have to get rid of them. And Ron had many companions that we removed, and he felt better. And then on about the third time I was working with him, his heart wasn't getting better, but it was no longer getting worse, and he wasn't just deathly tired all the time. And on that third or fourth time that I did the work with him, I was looking at him in the quantum room, saw this cable hooked into his back that was going straight to his heart. And I pulled that cable out of him, and as I took it out, I was wondering where this led, and part of my quantum room opened up, and there was a triangle-headed shaped alien staring at me. I'm staring at it. Neither of us know what to do, and it blasts me with this energy that actually knocked me out. I came to, and I was pissed. I went right back in, and I go back in. I invited Ron back to the room. I find this alien, and I start to go after it. It knocks me out again. It knocked me out twice in one day. And I waited a few days, and because I really wanted to help Ron, and my purpose is to help. And I went back into the quantum room. Same result. This thing knocks me out. And now I don't know what to do. I'm thinking. I'm trying to be creative. I'm at a complete loss. Ron's feeling better because it's unhooked, but I also know it's going to come back. And it was just a parasite sucking energy off of him. And a friend of mine says, well, Marine, why don't you quit going in guns ablaze? Why don't you just use your love team? I have multiple teams inside the quantum room that help me, a warrior team that helps remove these things, a love team that fills things back up so that things don't come back, and gives the companions or even the parasites love so that they can be what they're supposed to be. She says, why don't you just go fill him with love and see what happens? And so I tried that. And as soon as I saw him, I just blasted him with love. And he left Ron alone for a while, but then he came back. And a curious thing about this is after that first time that I saw this thing and it knocked me out twice, I called Ron and told him about it. And he said, well, about 4 years ago, under hypnosis, he lost it. He started screaming and tried to run out of the room. He was terrified. And he told the hypnotherapist, there's a triangle-headed shaped alien that's trying to kill me. And so he was quite concerned, and I didn't know about this at the time that it happened. You know, when I saw this thing, I had no idea that he'd had trouble with it. So there was a bit of a validation there. Later, I knew that this thing was coming back for Ron because his health was starting to fail again, and I think it was starting to take more energy. And so when I was meditating in my quantum room, I asked my highest guides. I have 3 very high level guides that I work with. I asked them, how do I take care of this for Ron? And as I was talking to my guides, I was just sitting, and I felt myself getting huge. Like picture when David Banner turns into the Hulk and he starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That was happening to me inside that quantum room. I could see just muscles coming out of places that shouldn't have muscles. And then they just said some real basic words. It was drive, 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 slam up, slam down, smash. And as soon as they said those words to me, the part of the quantum room opened, the mist opened. I saw the triangle-headed alien, and I went crashing right through the ship to him, grabbed him, drove him towards the wall like a linebacker would, the drive, slammed him up into the ceiling, down onto the floor, and just started squishing him into a ball like I was trying to turn him into a diamond.
When you're in this room, are you in a meditative state?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so is it possible not to interrupt, but everything I'm hearing sounds like a joint simulation, even the way you're perceiving yourself, like a self-perception image of yourself, right? And perhaps the thing that you're calling a triangle head is representative of a parasite that's, metaphysically attacking Ron, right? And it seems to me maybe this battle in this room is not a physical thing. It's happening in a different plane.
Correct. Yeah, it's happening in a place of spirit and energy. It's not, I'm not getting cuts. I'm not getting, bruises, anything like that.
Right.
If you were to see me, you would see me sitting in my Captain Kirk chair that I built, where I like to do this the most. You would just see me sitting there looking like I'm at peace. Where in reality, these things are going on and in a different plane of existence. Yes. And where a place where time is different. Sometimes when I'm doing this, 5 minutes takes place for my physical body, where maybe hours take place inside this realm. My perception is that, a long time, like hours took place.
Yeah. Space time's different. And like even in your dream state, like you when you have a dream,
yes.
I notice that I have a smartwatch that tracks my sleep, and I can see my REM states. And some of my dreams, they're forever long. I use supplements and I drink teas. But when you look at the time that's actually noted on the sleep study, it's not very long, a few minutes. It seems like it did a lot in that dream, but it's only literally a few minutes.
Yes, and I believe the same type of thing happens during a near-death experience, where somebody's only technically dead for seconds to a minute, but they do a full life review. They interact with things. All kinds of things are going on there because the time is different. We're in a different, it's almost like Doctor Who. It's bigger on the inside.
Right.
It's a different speed on the inside as well.
Because I hear a lot of, there's something very, so what you're telling me is I've listened to some very similar descriptions. And some of it from psychics, but the majority of this I hear from people that are using theory about quantum physics. We also, it's not even alleged because we don't know, but the idea that there's a parallel universe right next to us, real time. And I said this on the show, like when we're testing our nuclear bombs in deserts, right? You're unleashing the power of the sun in a desert to test it out because it's barren. But how do you know on the flips in the existence right next to us that you're not wiping a whole city out? Right. You're killing people in another existence because these bombs are altering space-time. It's the power of the sun. So anyway, that being said, it draws me back to, there was a movie called Interstellar. Are you familiar with it?
Yes.
And see how he moved through space-time and it was different for him. And I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it here, but it took me a while after watching a movie to really digest that and really think about it. Like even if we go to, and I say this to people too, here on Earth, when we send people to Mars, time is not, if they go there to colonize, time is not going to be the same for them. They might even age slightly differently. Because the variations of how long a day lasts for them, because we really base things on calendar here, and we don't know what's going to happen to your biology elsewhere. So there are so many possibilities. But for you yourself, this sounds like it's more like in the realm, another realm, a very spiritual realm, right? A high, and I don't even like using the word spiritual. I like using different energies, sources of energy.
Yes. It's a much higher level place than my physical body interacts in, for sure. And the way you can, I hate to use the word manipulate, but you can really do just about anything when you're in there. And you're changing energy. You're working with spirit to change energy. And so, you can do just about anything you want. You can, as far as protection or helping or bringing things to you.
I've had some lucid dreams. I take a lot of supplements for cognitive purpose, and I've had a lot of lucid dreams where, most people tell me about these scary dreams. Even dreams that are like scary for me, I have a lot of control for the most part that I recall. And even as recently as I had a dream or something with a gun, but I put myself in a position to be protected, by calling on certain things or fighting back. So that being said, that lets me know that my brain dumped DMT, right? So for you, and when you meditate, when you go into these states and you do these things for people or healing or whatever it is in that state of mind you get to, is there anything you're utilizing, like a tea or usually like perhaps a supplement?
No, and not that I'm would be opposed to that. I just don't know of any that would help me. At this point, it's just all been energy. My energy mixing with the energy of the people, and then that higher energy when I'm in the quantum room. So yeah, I haven't used anything like the tea or anything. I would absolutely not be opposed to it. I'm seeing some amazing things, and this might be counter to what a lot of people want to hear, but I'm really reading some amazing things about psychedelic mushrooms and LSD, really making gigantic improvements in people that are having brain problems. We decided that they were bad in the 60s and stopped experimenting and stopped looking at them and stopped working with these things. But there might be something to those things that unlock a part of our brain that not only can heal the brain, but just shoots creativity through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't even have to use psychedelics, really. I take lion's mane mushroom. I also take, there's a product by Onnit called Alpha Brain, and I use that a lot. I use that mostly when I shoot pool. There's another product called Mind Lab Pro. I had a guy on the show recently, Tony Civielli, and I was talking to him about my supplements. I take a ridiculous amount of supplements a day. Everything has a purpose. One could be for energy, another one could be for cognitive, another one for heart health, another one for just overall immune system. Like my whole life I've been that way. I always take supplements, but I find since I started using more lion's mane and things like Alpha Brain, my dreams are the description. Like I can almost write them down verbatim what took place ever since I started using these products. So then you imagine how powerful a psychedelic mushroom is, and imagine your dreams there. And who knows? Again, I try to tell people, when you hear psychedelic, don't think in terms of like you're creating and manipulating bullshit. You might be opening a part of the brain that you can't use otherwise. And you now can perceive, you're not going anywhere. You now could perceive an existence that's relevantly close to us. Hypothetically speaking, the multiverse, right?
Sure.
You're unlocking the ability to see. You're taking a supplement, and it's making the receptors in your brain allowed to channel in that signal. And so, I mean, that's for you, what you're doing. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you're going to a meditative state, and the energy. And I firmly believe our consciousness and our soul are the same thing. It's just concentrated raw energy. If you really look at it, and I think we're a download. Our energy is downloaded to these bodies. Oh, well, the body's dying. Well, let's take the energy, send it back to the source, and on to the next adventure for it, depending on how you behave anyway.
Yeah, I think that is very, at least from my understanding, I think that is what's going on. My guess is we have a very limited understanding of what's going on, but that's a picture that I can certainly see happening.
Sure.
And I think you're on there.
I'm going to do more research into that, because I don't subscribe to the idea that there's a heaven and hell. I don't. I do, however, believe that there's some, look, let's face it, there's some people on planet Earth pretty messed up. Serial killers are a prime example, you know?
Yes.
There's murderers, rapists, their energies are bad. And when they leave here, clearly the energy is going to be, there's, like I said, there's an architect at work, recognizes, all right, the energy in this one's not so good. It's got to go somewhere else. Either gets like reset or recycled, or like, you know, if you're a good energy, like you want to help people, you're healing people. So when you pass from here, your energy gets recycled, probably comes here again. You're needed here. You do great things here. Otherwise, your energy might go to another realm where, you know, for that form of energy to go there. But there's the kid. I always go to this kid. He's my go-to. It's a long time ago. He recalled a military pilot, and he was speaking about his life as a pilot in great detail. Not a celebrated pilot, no one that we'd known very, you know, clearly through school. Just some random military pilot, and he spoke about his life, where he crashed, and how he died, before the internet. Long before the internet, long before you had any kind of like worldwide communications for children, that this kid knew this, which tells me his energy, that pilot died, the energy was taken from him, and then downloaded to this kid to start new. And like any other energy, like the energy in your computer, you could delete all the information in your computer right now, do a master reset, and some of it's still residual. Someone out there could plug into it and find even pictures or information from it. It's still there. It's still attached to that somehow. And I think this kid, the energy from his previous life, some of that information was still residual, and he picked up on it, and it kind of merged a little bit. And who knows how? Maybe he got into a bike accident. Maybe he meditated. Maybe he took lion's mane and it opened up a part of his brain, and he was able to perceive it. But somehow he was able to take some of the data from his previous existence via the energy that was uploaded to his body.
Yes, and I think, and I do remember seeing different shows with that young man featured, and I can't remember for sure if he started to lose those memories as he got older or not, but many children seem to have a much better receiver for what's going on in the other side than adults do. Pets, dogs seem to have a receiver that they can see things that we can't. And I don't know if it's just because their energy is still so close to the source energy, you know, from when they came down,
right,
that they still have access to it where we don't, or if it's by design that we need to lose that memory. But I do believe kids have a much better grasp on what's going around us metaphysically than the adults do. I've talked to so many children that see ghosts and things they can't understand, but then they all go away when they're older.
Well, sure. You know, part of that is understand what the biology and the primal instinct of people are. When An example, when a wild animal, when a wild boar is born, right, or any prey animal for that matter, at birth, they have to kind of grow up pretty quick. There's a predator waiting. Right. We have a luxury as humans. We're born, we get taken care of, right? Or most primates anyway, where, four-legged land mammals, you better walk at birth. You better be ready to run. You better know where mom is to feed, because we could be killed at any moment. Now, the primate, as we are, when we're born, the same fears are there. We have that primal fear of the cat that's going to come out and kill us or whatever, right? And so children have to learn faster. They have to absorb. That's why children learn faster. Their childhood instincts are stronger than adults. Adults are already, we already know. We've experienced, we've been there. But kids, they're programmed to be alert, be aware. So can they perceive things that adults can't? Absolutely. Their ability to absorb information has got to be rapid and fast. I got to grow up. I'm not strong enough to be out here on my own. The predator could be anywhere. And then you get older and you start getting into society, recognizing that there's very little because we still do it. You and I do it. When you get that hair standing up on your arm and you get that weird feeling and in your peripheral vision, your 360 swivel, that's predator. That's us, our instincts looking for a predator in a room. Even if it's something as silly as a little noise in a closet that was innocent, our instincts kick in, it heightens our awareness. But for kids, that's automatic because they're a child, they're vulnerable. And when mommy and daddy are around, you better believe it's on its peak, whether it be just for absorbing information or learning. And that primal instinct of like, well, what could be there? And what's going on? Why am I thinking this? Kids question everything. I love children. They question everything. They have no idea about religion and race and all this other nonsense until they're, they get old enough to be, unfortunately, plugged with it,
Yeah, till the programming kicks in.
Yes, I mean, that's why probably that kid, he caught it because his heightened awareness and then if he had what we call an imaginary thing and he really hyper focused on, well, why did I think that? What's that? And the next thing you know, previous energy is putting data to your now new computer. So it's within the realm of possibility. For you, Todd, what do you think about the afterlife personally?
Personally, I do believe there's an afterlife. When I first started doing the radio program, I wanted to talk to people that had experienced near-death experiences and also people that mediums that talk to people on the other side. And the biggest thing I was concerned about is I always just internally believed that people go to an afterlife. I was terrified that my pets didn't. And so I got guests on that radio show just to alleviate my fear that pets would be there when I got there. And I wanted to make sure that dogs for sure made it. And I firmly believe other animals make it as well. I think anything that's alive will have an afterlife. I don't know what each thing is. People seem to have a certain type of, when they have a near-death experience, certain types of things they see, and pets seem to be there. But I don't know what an insect's afterlife would be, or a fish. I'm very curious as to what their afterlife is like, and maybe they're all just a part of that big chunk of energy, and so they go back to the same thing, just like people or dogs or horses or whatever would. But I definitely believe there's an afterlife, and I've talked to too many people that have had deathbed visitations, that have had near-death experiences. I had a near-death experience, and I watched the doctors freaking out when I died for a minute on the table, on the operating table. So I firmly believe that there's an afterlife.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to use imagination and a little bit of science from what I've read. There's definitely, so in my opinion, there's a source, right? Energy it has to come from a source. It just doesn't materialize. We notice in science, when you have a TV, the way that TV works is we send electricity to it to make it function, and then we send data to it to put something on it. That's how it works. It's not the TV itself that makes it special. It's the data and the energy that's sent to it. Same for us. So our energy has got to come from a source. The energy of everything on this planet has to come from the same source. It's programmed. It's if I had to, and I don't really subscribe to simulation theory, but I do kind of get the idea that look at how an Avatar works in the movie Avatar. Sure. Our bodies, it makes prime sense. We have these physical, flesh and muscle and tendon and bone, and that's all useless without the energy that makes us self-aware to control it. So when we perish from here, everything from the ant right up to the person, that energy has to go to a source. And that source may change its programming. Well, guess what? You had a good life down there. You were a bird. And now we're going to send you to this other planet. And you are whatever species of animals there or person there. This is where your energy is going. You have been recycled. Yeah. So I kind of think along those lines. Because that, to me, makes the most sense. The problem I have with that is I'm a very nostalgic person. I'm always looking backwards. I hate to say that, but I'm a very nostalgic. I love my memories, my friends, and the things I do. What makes me me, and not even a fear. A concern is that when I pass from here, my energy goes elsewhere. It's recycled, and what made me here no longer gives me the value there, which was why I think my energy is strong enough that some kid's going to recall my life. Like, well, I remember shooting pool and hanging out with this guy, because I think a nostalgic person, that energy would force itself upon to the next server. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I would hope it would. I hope that the things that we do here are for a reason, and that they have a purpose, and not just something that we go through the motions and then it's all over.
Right.
That would be awful to me, to think about the beautiful people I've known throughout my life, the beautiful dogs, the different things I've witnessed with other animals, that those things don't continue on somehow. And I would hate for it to be erased. I would hate for it to just be over.
Right.
I would hate for it to be lost in the stream. You drop a pint of paint into a fast moving river, and it's dispersed and gone to where it's unrecognizable. And I hope something like that doesn't happen, where our thoughts and the energy of us mixes back with the whole. I hope, even though we're part of that one, I hope that we still keep our individuality.
I would imagine the source of us would have a database, so they could, if nothing, for nothing more, not for the comforts of you and I, but for comparison, right? Because if you're gonna have a system with life, and when I say life, sentient, self-aware, you need comparisons, right? Because, like, how do you know, where did we go wrong with this guy Jeffrey Dahmer? He's killing people and eating them. How do we fix that problem? That we need a database to compare it. Well, let's figure out what got him to the point where he was doing this, and how do we fix it for the next guy? Or you had this guy Mozart. He made wonderful music. How do we need a comparison? Let's have a database. We want more like that. You have a guy Todd Wilcox. He cares about people, wants to heal them. Here's our database. And we want to be, in order to put a Todd Wilcox in different realms of parts of the universe, we must have a comparison somewhere. So your data has got to be somewhere. Same with my data.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
and
so
I hope so, and it has to be.
Yeah, because that's wishful thinking on my behalf. Because again, for me, I'm so nostalgic. I don't want to let go of here, and that could be problematic for me moving forward in the future. Because when I get to that point where I'm on the deathbed, my biggest you want to hear, Todd. One of the things I ask myself: if I could live forever, what would I do? It would be sad, because you see everyone you love die. Sure. So clearly you'd have to be, and that's why there's this order and this way of things. So this way we don't have that, because obviously we can't be immortal. Our population would be devastating to any star system. Devastating. Yes. We'd be a virus, legit. But if I could be immortal, my motivation is to see what we discover, really. Like, I love space documentaries. I love learning more about space. When we go to the moon, it's 2025. We go 2027 when we start colonizing. Somewhere in the 2030s, we're definitely going to Mars. I want to be around and witness it and see what comes of it. That's my excitement. It's crazy to say, but that's the motivator for me to be. If I had any motivator to be immortal, that would be it. Just to learn, absorb, see what's what's new.
To see the changes.
Right. Discoveries of life.
Maybe we will. Maybe even though we're not in our body, we're still a part of all that energy. Maybe we will still know all those things that are going on.
Yeah. I mean, an example of there being a source of energy, Todd. There are scientists right now mapping the human brain, and we're not doing it to better humanity and make us live better. We're doing this with the idea of uploading and downloading our consciousness, their own form of immortality. And at said point, when they come to the realization that, well, it's impractical for us to make bodies for these energies that live in, it's more practical for us to create something for them to live in just as a form of energy. That's when you get into simulation theory. And if we are just getting to that, civilizations that predate us by 20,000 years have already been there, done it, and perfected. And then, like they say about the everything's infinite, something predates us by billions of years as an intelligence. Sure. How do we know we're not living in a simulation now? We would never know. So, like I said before the podcast, I didn't subscribe to that because I could bleed and I feel and I hurt and people get sick. And then a friend of mine was like, well, if it's part of a program, how do you know? And I didn't sleep that night because I didn't know. It's tragic.
For sure.
Todd, I had a great conversation with you. Before we close out, mention your website and your talk show, where people could find it and how can they find you?
Sure. The best way to find what I'm doing is go to slipstreamshaman.com. And at that website, there is a link to the book. It's on Amazon. There's also some links to my radio show. It's called My Side of the Universe, and then links to different podcasts like this, and yours will be on there soon as well, where they can listen to the show there. I would also encourage them to go to Slipstream Shaman at Instagram and follow me. That's where all the new things will come out as we do things. We have in the book, there's a thing called Polymedella, which is many healings. And it's set up to do a healing today that will actually heal somebody in the future or even the past when they need it. And it'll find that. And as we do different polymedellas, it will let you know through Instagram. And that's really the best way to keep in touch with me. But you can also send me an email. There's an email link at the website. And I do free healing sessions. I don't charge for this work. What the plan is that the book and Instagram and YouTube and those things will monetize things to the point where I can do this full time. But when somebody gets in touch with me and needs a healing, I do not charge for that. I do not say that I don't charge and then ask for a donation, nothing like that. It's part of what I do for, to help us as a society move up. So if somebody feels like they have a problem, whether it's a health issue, anxiety, you're having trouble sleeping, there's some night terrors like we talked about, reach out to me through the website. There's an email, and it's just slipstreamshaman@gmail.com. But I do those for free. Sometimes I get behind. Last week I was about a week out. Currently I'm caught up, but I do those for free of charge, and I want to grow the Slipstream community, and that's my way of doing it, is helping people free of charge.
Excellent. I'll have all that in description as well, so people can have links to find it in. And Todd, next time we talk, we're gonna specifically highlight the healing part. We're gonna get deeper into that.
Fantastic. I would love that. Yeah.
And for those of you listening, good day, good night, good whatever it is for you. I'm going to talk to Todd in post, and take care.